All right, good morning, all. Good morning, sir. Good morning, all of my friends. So, here in this opportunity, our group would like to present you guys about food recipe translations with our group, with myself, Willia, and then we have Rindu, Philippus, Evan, and well, translating food recipe is more likely to translate different culture. Some cuisines become a country's identity and have a unique and even weird taste for some people. And nowadays, food recipe are customized from one another. And how do we translate the food recipe from one language to another language? And here we will discuss some important points in translation of food recipes, including the theory, methodology, ideology, procedures, and in the end, we will show you the application of translation in a food recipe. And without any further ado, we'll come to discuss about the translation theory will be explained by Ali.
Okay, thanks, Willia. So here I will explain about translation theory. According to Anton Popovic, translation theory is a science which studies the systemic examination of translation, and its task is to structure the translation process and the text. Similarly, Peter Newmark defines translation theory as a body of information related to the translation process. Conventionally, it is advised that translator meet three crucial needs and they should be knowledgeable of 1. The source language. 2. The target language. 3. The subject matter. The instruction in food recipe always written using imperative verb. The imperative verb is the action that the speaker or writer wants someone to do. Also, a lot of recipe use the theory of partial translation by Catford, where not the whole sentence is translated. However, some parts of it were left untranslated to show the local culture through the recipe. That's all from translation theory. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ali. And then we will come to the methodology and ideology of food recipe translation. And first thing first, the methodology will be explained by Rindu.
Okay, thank you, Julia. I will explain about methodology of food recipe translation. First is adaptation by Dalburnett. This is used in those cases where the type of situation being referred to by the source language message is unknown in the target language culture. In such cases, translators have to create a new situation that can be considered as being equivalent. Adaptation can, therefore, be described as a special kind of equivalent, a situational equivalence where, in translating food recipes, we do an adaptation method to adjust the target language so that it can be understood properly and there are no misunderstandings. Next is description. Translating food recipes using this method is helpful because this is concerned with placing the language in its social setting, because there are several terms in the search language food recipe that are not yet understood. A description method is needed to find an explanation of these terms. Okay, the last one is free translation by Catford. Free translation is where the process of message transfer changes the whole word and even structure of sentence, but does not change the context and the meaning. Okay, I think that's all from me.
All right, thank you, Rindu. And now we'll have the ideology to be explained by Joe.
Okay, I will explain about the ideology. Ideology is a principle or conviction regarding right, wrong, and translation is known as ideology. Researchers and practitioners in the field of translation concur that an effort is made to translate message from a text in source language into a text in target language. A correct translation is one that successfully transfers the meaning of the original text into the target language. So when we translate a recipe, we are using two ideology, which is domestication ideology and foreignization and ideology. Domestication ideology, it is expected that a translation won't seem like a translator. As a result, the translator decides what is required to ensure that the reader doesn't mistake the translation for a foreign word. This ideology is to make the reader of the translation know what the point of the text. But for people who use this ideology will not have enough knowledge from the source's language. Foreignization ideology is the ideology of foreignization is focused on translations that are correct, acceptable, and good, which are in line with the preference of expectation of readers and publisher who wants to see the source language, culture present, or who believe that is advantage of for society for the source language to be present. Basically, recipe from another country that have their own word to keep the culture from their country. And sometimes the words are translated by using the transference translations to keep the cultural vocabulary. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Joe. And we have the translation procedure in food recipe. So in food recipe translation, we found the three main procedures, which are the first one is transference, where the message transferred to target language without any changes. And now we have the borrowing procedure from Dalbernat, which is the simplest of all translation procedure because it just borrow the source language words to transfer into the target language. Well, we use this borrowing procedure to introduce the flavor, the culture of the source language into a translations. And we have transpositions, which is the method where it replace one word clause with another without changing the meaning. For the transposition method is also very often used because the structure from source language into target language is sometimes quite different, and sometimes it's really, really different. And that's all from me. And now we'll have the example, which will be delivered by Evan.
As you can see here, as you can see here, here is the example of the food recipe translation. On the left side, it's the target language, and the right side is the source language. So I'm going to tell you the example of the transference, like in the source language, extra virgin oil. Then in the target language, it means minyak zaitun extra virgin. And the second one, example of borrowing like pizza or mozzarella. And the third example of transposition, tomato sauce to sauce tomat. That's it.
All right, thank you, Evan. So we can see from F1 explanations of the example, we can find the real procedure in translation right away. So while translating food recipe, it is very essential that we know the terminology of culinary in the target language, such as like drizzle, sprinkle, and so on. Also, the ingredients such as sauce tomat, mozzarella, olive oil even is really, really important in the recipe so that the translator must have the knowledge about the ingredients in source language to target language in order to transfer the recipe correctly. And then the translation results have to be as natural as possible, which means that it is very similar to the original recipe, or we can say the source language. And the target language, the translations should be easily understood by people. Well, I think that's all from our group, and we will discuss it more later. So, thank you guys for your attention.